Heyo, it's Bright Eye. Welcome back. This is part 2 of my drawing cave monsters videos. I'll put a link to the first one in the description if you want to go back and watch it. Other than that, enjoy. So the first thing you'll probably notice about this video is that the art style has drastically changed from last time. I think I finally found a style that works for me, so hopefully the designs in any of my following videos will be more consistent. The first character design I started with in this one, I'm naming her Maggie. She's an old lady who lives in a cave, because all of these monsters live in a cave. And I think she would be some sort of oracle, hence the third eye on her forehead. She sits in her little puddle here, and I think that she would use the water as a scrying tool. And you could go into the cave and find her and ask her questions, and she would answer them by looking in the puddle, and the puddle would show her the answer to your question. Now, of course, there would be a price that you would have to pay. I don't really know what this price would be. I don't think it would be too bad. Maggie doesn't seem like an evil monster, she just seems like she wants her fair share. So when I originally designed her, I knew I wanted her to look very wise and like she could be, somebody's grandma, but just a little weird. So she's just a nice old lady with a shawl and a dress and a skirt. And she lives in a cave and she drinks tea and she has a third eye in the middle of her forehead. I also did enlarge her head a little bit, taking inspiration from Spirited Away by Studio Ghibli, where the witch character has a very large head in proportion to the rest of her body. I just thought it made her look a little unnatural, this isn't a normal old lady that you've stumbled upon in this cave. About halfway through the coloring process of Maggie, I did figure out that there was such a thing as pausing your screen recordings, so the process should look a lot smoother from here on out, instead of all the zooming in and out that can be kind of hard on your eyes sometimes. So hopefully I will keep remembering to do that in future videos so that my quality can continue to upgrade. I did want to talk about just some cave monsters in this video. I did some research, looked into mythology, I found some that I thought were really cool. So I'm going to start off telling you about Echidna. I wanted to cover some of the more niche cave monsters since everybody knows about dragons and gnomes and all that. So Echidna is the mother of monsters. She's from Greek mythology and is described as having the upper body of a woman and the lower body of a snake, which is kind of similar to the Naga in Indian mythology, who have the upper bodies of humans and the lower bodies of snakes, or sometimes they're just cobras with multiple heads. It depends on the account that you find. But anyways, Echidna is from Greek mythology. Typhon was her partner. Typhon is the son of Gaia, the earth goddess, and Tartarus, the god of the abyss, or basically Greek hell. So then Echidna and Typhon lived in a cave in the Greek region of Arima. My pronunciation on a lot of these names is going to be kind of weird, so I apologize if I get it wrong. If you know the correct pronunciation, feel free to correct me in the comments. Sources are unclear on the exact number of children Echidna and Typhon had, but several names are repeated and are as followed. First is Ladon, or the Colchian dragon. Ladon is the dragon that guarded the Golden Fleece. Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guards the gates to the underworld, everybody knows him. The Lernaean Hydra, which also guarded an entrance to the underworld and was ultimately slain by Heracles, or Hercules. The Chimera, which is a hybrid of a goat, a snake, and a lion. I believe it also breathes fire. Would not want to encounter him in the wild. Orthrus, the two-headed dog that kept watch over the cattle of Geryon. Geryon is another monster. And the Sphinx, a winged lion with the head of a woman that spoke in riddles, which is more commonly associated with Egypt and the pyramids. There's also an animal in real life called the Echidna, who is most probably named after the Echidna of myth. The word Echidna comes from the Greek echidna, there's not much of a difference in pronunciation there, but it's spelled differently, meaning viper. So the echidna of myth was named so because of her serpentine lower body. The echidna today is a type of anteater, and it has characteristics of both mammals and reptiles. It's similar to a platypus. The naturalist Baron Georges Cuvier, he was French, so that was my best guess at his name, suggested the name echidna for the little animal since it was a mix of mammal and snake, just like the mother of monsters. I'm going back in here and adding some designs on her shawl and her skirt. I feel like in her free time, she would do embroidery or some other handicraft like that when she's not making deals with people and giving them, ultimate knowledge. Fellow digital artists may be shocked at what I'm doing here. I'm shading on the same layer as my colors, which I don't feel like a lot of people do. However, digital art for me is currently just an upgraded version of traditional art. I'm very used to working on one layer. You only get one sheet of paper. You can't really trace and then merge down in traditional art. So I find it just more comfortable to do my color work on one layer and then do my shadings on top of it. I do separate out a layer in all three of the designs we have in here today for my divide layer, which is it lets you add a lighting effect, which is pretty cool. It's kind of hard to use because you have to select the opposite color of what you want to show up on your canvas. So for example, if you have like green, blue, you're gonna get like a red, purple glow. So it took me a minute to figure out, but I think I got some nice effects in here. Then I'm just going in and highlighting a little, trying to keep the lighting source consistent how it is in the photo so that she blends cohesively with the rest of it. And pretty soon you'll see me going in and adding that lighting effect. I did a glow around her body in the end. Again, just in case the third eye wasn't enough, if you walk in on her, be like, yeah, something's not right with this lady. Ultimately, I do think that Maggie would help you out if you were lost in the cave. She might not be, the most forthcoming, but she would take pity on you eventually. And here she is, all finished. Miss Maggie. The second design has to be my favorite out of the three that I did for this video. I really like this guy. So his name is Goliath because of the stone formation behind him that we saw just a couple of seconds ago. It will come back. Which is also called Goliath in the actual cave. This guy, again, I took a lot of inspiration from Studio Ghibli, which is one of my favorite artists. If you couldn't tell, I love Miyazaki's work. And I think that this guy would really be a helpful spirit. He stands in the cave. The Goliath rock formation is quite near the entrance of the cave. So I think that my Goliath would be, he would show the way to anyone lost in the cave. That's why he's pointing out towards the entrance. If you saw him, then you know that you're close to escaping. So I gave him a lantern for a head because, again, he's sort of the guiding light. And I gave him a kimono-type robe. I tried to keep it as accurate as possible to actual Japanese clothing, but the image results I was getting was like costumes, like kimono costumes, and not actual clothing that people might wear, so I don't know how accurate it is. I went back in, tried to do some like wrought iron work because that's what's fancy about those lanterns, decided that I hated it, tried it again, also decided that I hated it. I took it back out and I just never put it back. I was deciding between red and blue for his outfit. I just eventually decided that red would make the better contrast. Had a little bit of feedback from some people, and ultimately I do like it better than I think if I had gone with the blue. I also think that his body would be made entirely out of metal. He would be kind of like a lamppost guy. I don't know, he's standing in the water all day, so I don't know how he's not rusting. It's just like his spirit ability or something. And that kind of leads us into the next monster that I want to talk about. I do hope I'm pronouncing the name right, but it is the hyakume from Japanese folklore. So hyakume are a type of yokai, which is a general term for supernatural phenomena in Japanese culture. There's lots of different types of yokai, ranging from malicious demons to playful spirits. Hyakume like to live in caves, abandoned temples, or other shady places. Not really a strict cave dweller, but I thought they were too cool to pass up, so I wanted to talk about them anyways. Their name translates to 100 eyes, and it's very literal. Hyakume are human-sized blobs covered with yellow eyes. They're literally just balls of eyes. The reference images are interesting. They never come out during the day because the sun is too bright for them, because they have, about 100 eyes. Hyakume guard the areas that they live in. If someone suspicious passes by, then the hyakume will send out one of its eyes to stick to the intruder until they are gone, watching for any untoward behavior. So they're basically like policemen, I guess. Then once the threat is gone, the eye will fly back to the hyakume. If someone gets too close and the hyakume feels threatened, it will jump out at the trespasser. And given their odd appearance, this generally frightens the trespasser away. Hyakume also look very similar to another type of yokai called a nupeppo. The only difference being that the nupeppo do not have eyes, they're just blobs. I did all the pattern on Goliath's robe by hand. I think there's probably a way that I could have duplicated it, but I didn't feel like it, so I sat here for about 10 minutes doing all the individual dots. I think it turned out pretty nicely. Again, you see me going in with a divide layer, and adding in light effects, because he's a lantern. His head needs to glow, obviously. And then I went and added some rim lighting along his arm and his hand, just to make that light overflow. Then I did go in and add a reflection and some more light in the finished image that I didn't end up doing in the recording. But that was Goliath. The last character design in this video is kind of a little bonus. She's not a monster. She's just an ordinary person. I named her Alice. I think that she would really like caving and all that, and she would talk to everybody about how caves are so awesome and that she just wants to go explore caves. But I don't think that she's ever actually gone caving by herself, and the only trips into caves that she's gone on are with the guide and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that she probably thinks she's a bit more of an explorer than she actually is. So I gave her one of those hard hats that you can just find at a cave gift shop, and some really impractical clothing for going into a cave. She's wearing a tank top and really short shorts and open-toed shoes, which you should not wear if you're going to explore any sort of nature. It's just not a good idea. But I think that she would be really nice, and she would take all her friends to caves and try to make them see how awesome they are and how awesome she thinks they are. She would also really like bats. Obviously, the reference picture has neon bats. And so I think I didn't add it in this picture because I can't figure out how to draw a backpack, but I think she would wear one of those backpacks with the little wings on them. There you see me trying to do it, and then I just end up getting rid of it. I did this sort of character because of the background image, the reference image, because the neon bats are pretty cool, but they're not natural at all, and they don't belong in a cave setting. And so I wanted to get a character like that, where yeah, she's in the cave, but she doesn't really belong here. So I didn't make her a monster of any type. She is just a girl. But I have one more monster, real monster, that I'd like to discuss in this video. And I've never heard of this one before, but it is the Muki from Andean mythology. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Muki is described as a 2-foot tall humanoid, very muscular. with blonde hair and large eyes that reflect light, as well as having disproportionately large feet, which makes them kind of waddle as they walk. The Mookie wears mining gear, although different accounts vary on whether it is a more traditional poncho and a lantern, or modern clothes carrying a flashlight. The Mookie is generally described as a solitary creature. In temperament, he seems to be a trickster, messing with mining equipment and making strange noises in the dark to unsettle miners. He also likes to make deals with the miners, giving them knowledge in exchange for alcohol or foodstuffs. The name Mookie comes from the Quechua murik, meaning to smother. This is, I think, because of all the sediment that gets into the miners' lungs as they work, which can be very dangerous to their health. There are also a couple accounts of Mookie making the caves collapse in while miners are working there. So, not really somebody that I would want to encounter if I was doing my job as a miner in a cave. But they do sound pretty cool nonetheless. So again, I gave her some brighter colors as opposed to, like, say, the Guardian from the previous video, or even Maggie from in the beginning, because I really just wanted her to stand out from the natural cave setting. Now that I'm looking at her, it kind of looks like I just took the My Little Pony, like the purple one. I never watched that show, so I don't know their names, but it kind of looks like if she is a human. That wasn't really what I was going for, but I don't know, here we are. I also apologize, the reveal for this character is weird because I couldn't make my editing software work how it was supposed to, and I had to, like, take a screen recording of the reveal and then put it back in. So if it looks weird, that's why, and I do apologize for that. But anyways, here's Alice, and she is the last of our character designs. Well, that was today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me draw Maggie, Goliath, and Alice. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.